The rules change after 40. Not because the market changes. Not because your options disappear. But because the variables that matter most, time, risk, and margin for error, shift in ways that most financial content never accounts for. And if you're applying the same logic you were given at 25, you're probably working with the wrong framework entirely. Most people in their 40s have a stable income, a few accounts they've been loosely contributing to, maybe some debt that's mostly under control, and a general sense that they should be doing more, but no clear picture of what more actually looks like from here. That recognition isn't failure. That's just where most people actually are. You don't need more risk. You need structure. Here's the first belief worth challenging. There's a common idea that if you started late, the answer is to invest more aggressively. Take on higher risk, chase higher returns, make up for lost time. That logic sounds reasonable. It rarely works the way people expect. After 40, wealth building shifts. It moves away from growth obsession and toward capital management discipline. Those are different things. Growth obsession means chasing returns. Capital management discipline means protecting what you build while growing it with intention. What changes after 40 isn't what you think. It's not that growth stops mattering. It's that the cost of a significant loss becomes harder to recover from. At 28, a bad market year is frustrating. At 45, a bad sequence of returns at the wrong moment can restructure your entire retirement timeline. Most people misunderstand compounding at this stage. They think it always works in their favor. It does, until volatility disrupts the sequence, and sequence matters more the closer you get to needing the money. So what does a workable framework actually look like after 40? There are 3 stages worth understanding, not as rigid rules, but as a logical order of operations. Stage 1. Stabilize cash flow. Before any serious investment conversation makes sense, the foundation underneath it needs to be stable. That means knowing what's coming in, what's going out, and what margin actually exists, not estimated, not approximate. Actual numbers? This sounds basic. It is, and a significant number of people in their 40s haven't done it in precise terms. They have a general sense of their finances. General senses don't build wealth. If your cash flow isn't intentional, your investment contributions will be inconsistent. And inconsistent contributions are one of the most reliable ways to underperform over time, regardless of what the market does. Stage 2. Protect the downside. This is the stage most people skip because it feels defensive rather than exciting. But after 40, downside protection deserves serious attention. That includes your emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of expenses in something accessible and stable. It includes appropriate insurance coverage, particularly if others depend on your income. And it includes a realistic look at your debt structure, specifically high-interest debt, which quietly erodes investment gains in a way that's easy to overlook. But there's a 4th factor nobody mentions at this stage. We'll come back to that. Stage 3. Grow strategically. Once the foundation is stable and the downside is addressed, the question of growth becomes more coherent. And at this stage, strategic growth doesn't mean speculative. It means intentional. That typically involves a diversified approach, spreading exposure across asset classes in a way that reflects both your time horizon and your actual risk tolerance. Not the risk tolerance you think you have when markets are rising, the risk tolerance you have when they're not. Step 3 only works if step 1 is fixed. A lot of people try to run step 3 while steps 1 and 2 are still shaky. The returns don't compound the way they expect. The inconsistency doesn't show up in the investment itself. It shows up in the behavior around it. Now, let's talk about portfolio structure at this stage. The classic framework you've probably heard is something like subtract your age from 100, And that's the percentage you hold in equities. So, at 45, roughly 55% equities, 45% bonds or more conservative instruments. That framework is outdated for most people. With life expectancy extending and retirement potentially spanning 25 to 30 years, a 45-year-old still has a meaningful time horizon. Too conservative too early introduces a different kind of risk, the risk of your money not growing enough to sustain a longer retirement. The goal isn't to eliminate risk. The goal is to carry the right kind of risk for your actual timeline. That usually means maintaining meaningful equity exposure while adding layers of stability through diversification, through regular rebalancing, through not concentrating too much in any single position. There's one more risk nobody talks about clearly enough: longevity risk. Most retirement planning focuses on the accumulation phase, building the number. Fewer people plan carefully for the distribution phase, actually living off that number, potentially for decades. If your money doesn't grow faster than inflation over the long term, your purchasing power slowly erodes. A lifestyle that costs a certain amount today will cost meaningfully more in 20 years. That math doesn't stop when you retire. Then there's inflation erosion on a year-by-year basis. And then there's something that gets almost no attention in mainstream financial content: emotional volatility and late-life decision fatigue. Most late starters don't fail because of returns. They fail because of inconsistency under stress. When markets drop significantly, and they will, periodically, the behavioral response is what determines outcomes more than the technical structure. People who held through 2008 and 2020 without making reactive decisions generally recovered. People who exited at the bottom locked in permanent losses. This is where most disciplined people fail, not because they didn't have a plan, because the plan wasn't built to survive the emotional pressure of watching it temporarily lose value. That's not a market problem. That's a structure problem. And it's fixable, but only if you acknowledge it in advance. So what does this all come down to? After 40, the framework shifts toward 3 clear priorities: less speculation, more structure. Intentional asset behavior. Less speculation means reducing exposure to high volatility positions that require you to be right about timing. A skill most professional managers don't have consistently, let alone individual investors managing this alongside a career and a life. More structure means your contributions are scheduled, your allocations are intentional, and your rebalancing is periodic, not emotional. Intentional asset behavior means every position in your portfolio has a reason to be there that connects to your actual timeline and actual goals. Not a trend, not a prediction, not what someone online said was obvious. Structure beats intensity. That phrase matters more at this stage than at any other. A moderate plan executed with discipline consistently outperforms an aggressive plan executed with inconsistency. One more thing worth naming clearly: the emotional trap most people fall into after 40 is comparison. Comparing their current position to where they thought they'd be. Comparing their portfolio to someone else's. Comparing their trajectory to a number they read in an article. None of those comparisons are useful. They're just noise that interrupts clear thinking. The more useful question is, given where you are right now, what structure makes the most sense going forward? That question has an answer. The comparison doesn't. It's not about catching up. It's about positioning wisely. The 40s are not the end of the wealth building window. For most people, they're the first time they have enough stability, enough income, and enough self-awareness to actually build something that holds. The asset allocation conversation is specifically how you actually divide what you have across different types of investments for your exact time horizon, is where most of this gets applied in practice. That's where the framework you just heard gets translated into actual decisions. But that starts with getting the foundation right first. Structure before speed. always.